The guards' torches cast dancing shadows across the Alpha King's palace gates as Sera's knees hit the stone. Her wrists burned where the rope cut into her skin rope that he had tied. Welcome back to Emmy Romance Collections. Make sure you subscribe, like, and comment at the comment section as we journey together. Cade, please, her voice cracked. He didn't turn around. Didn't even pause. Just kept walking, his silhouette disappearing into the darkness beyond the torchlight, leaving her kneeling like a sacrifice at the feet of the most dangerous predator in the realm. The stolen memory tucked inside her jacket pulsed with warmth, the dead prince's final moments, extracted from his corpse just hours ago. Evidence of their crime. Evidence he'd made sure she'd be caught with. The palace gates groaned open. Well, well. The voice that emerged from the darkness was silk over steel. A memory thief, gift-wrapped and delivered to my door. Sera looked up into eyes that glowed amber in the torchlight. Alpha King Theron. She'd expected fury. Instead, his smile was almost gentle as he crouched before her, tilting her chin up with one clawed finger. Do you know what memory you stole, little thief? She said nothing. My son's. His last breath. His final heartbeat. The truth of how he died. His smile sharpened. And the fool who just threw you to the wolves? He has no idea what he's done. The Alpha King rose, gesturing to his guards. Take her to the East Tower. Comfortable chambers. She's not a prisoner. Sera's eyes widened. What? Oh, don't misunderstand. Those amber eyes gleamed with something that made her blood freeze. You'll work for me now. You'll dive into my son's memories and find his killer. And that partner of yours who thought he was so clever. The Alpha King's smile turned vicious. He threw you to the wolves. Now I'm going to make him pay for it. And you, little thief, are going to watch. Sera's fingers traced the cold marble of the tomb as Cade kept watch by the crypt entrance. The royal crypt beneath the palace was a labyrinth of the dead generations of werewolf royalty sleeping in ornate sarcophagi, their memories slowly fading into the stone. 2 minutes, Cade whispered, his voice tight with tension. The guard rotation changes in 2 minutes. She didn't answer. Her ability was already awakening, that strange pulling sensation behind her eyes that meant memories were close. The dead had so many layers upon layers of moments crystallized in dying synapses, waiting for someone like her to extract them. Prince Adrian had been dead for 3 months. The official story: killed heroically in battle against rogues on the northern border. A warrior's death. An honorable death. But their client, the mysterious figure who'd paid them a fortune just for the meeting, had hinted at something else. Murder. Cover-up. Secrets worth dying for. And secrets, Sera had learned, were the most valuable currency in the black market memory trade. Her hand found the prince's cold forehead, and she pulled. The world inverted. She was running through corridors, heart pounding, clutching documents. No, not she. Him. Prince Adrian. This was his memory, his fear, his desperate need to reach his father before. You won't get away with this. His own voice, younger than she'd expected. Afraid but defiant. Won't I? A figure in the shadows. The voice familiar, but the memory was already fragmenting, corrupted by death and time. The Alpha King will never believe you. You're his disappointing son who can't even shift properly. I'm his trusted. The name dissolved into static. You're stealing from them. Adrian's voice shook with rage. I have proof. The skimming, the embezzlement, the deals with rival packs. Proof. A laugh, cold and sharp. Where is this proof, little prince? Hidden. Safe. And if anything happens to me, then I'll find it. And everyone you told will have unfortunate accidents. Movement in the darkness. A blade catching torchlight. Nothing personal, princeling. Pain exploded in Adrian's back. Falling. Cold stone against his cheek. Watching his own blood pool around him. Thinking of her. The memory shattered like glass. Sera gasped, pulling back. The extracted memory solidified in her palm, a small crystalline sphere that pulsed with inner light. Still warm. Still fresh enough to be valuable. Still corrupted in all the places that mattered. She'd seen the murder. Felt the prince's death. But the killer's face remained blurred, the name lost to memory decay. Got it, she breathed, tucking the sphere carefully into the leather pouch at her belt. Then we go. Now. Cade was already moving, grabbing her arm, pulling her toward the exit. They made it 3 corridors before the alarm started screaming. Sera's lungs burned as they sprinted through the palace underbelly, Cade's hand locked around her wrist, dragging her through passages he'd memorized during weeks of planning. This was supposed to be clean. Get in, extract the memory, get out. Simple. But nothing about stealing from the Alpha King's palace was ever simple. Left no, right? Right? Cade shouted over the howling alarms. Sera veered right, her boots slipping on polished stone. Behind them, she could hear the guards, dozens of them, boots thundering, voices raised in coordination. And beneath that, growls. They were shifting. Cade. I know. Keep moving. They burst into a wider corridor and Sera's heart sank. Dead end. No way there, the tapestry Cade had marked, the one hiding the servants' passage. Guards poured from every doorway. Wolves in human form, eyes already glowing with the change, teeth elongating, claws extending. The shift was fast for palace guard. They trained for it, practiced until they could change in seconds instead of minutes. Cade threw something small and round. Sera ducked, covering her eyes. The flashbang exploded with light and sound. Wolves howled, blinded, and Sera ran, following Cade's pull through the chaos. They hit the servants' passage, narrow and dark, and squeezed through. Behind them, wolves slammed into the opening, too large in their half-shifted forms to follow. But they'd find another way. They always did. Almost there, Cade panted. The outer wall, just like we planned. They burst into open air. The outer wall rose before them, 30 feet of smooth stone, and their escape route. The rope they'd planted during reconnaissance, hidden in the ivy, waiting. Go. Cade shoved her toward the wall. Sera grabbed the rope, started climbing. Her arms screamed in protest. She was built for finesse, for the delicate work of memory extraction, not athletic feats, but fear gave her strength. She was 10 feet up when she realized Cade wasn't following. Cade? She looked back. He stood at the base of the wall. Not climbing. Not moving. Just standing there, looking up at her with an expression she'd never seen before. Hollow. Decided. Final. Cade, what are you doing? Climb. I'm sorry, Sera. The words were so soft she almost didn't hear them over the distant alarms. Then he reached up and grabbed the rope she was climbing. For one confused moment, she thought he was finally following her. Then he cut it. Sera fell. Not fairly 10 feet, but enough to knock the breath from her lungs when she hit the ground. Stars exploded across her vision. She tried to roll, tried to get up, but Cade was already there. His hands were frighteningly efficient as he flipped her onto her stomach, wrenched her arms behind her back. What are you, Cade? Stop. He didn't respond. Just pulled the severed rope tight around her wrists, professional, practiced, like he'd done this before. Like he'd planned this. Cade. She bucked against him, but he outweighed her by 60 pounds of muscle. What are you doing? Let me go. He tied the final knot. Hauled her to her feet. She fought. God, she fought. Kicked at his shins, tried to bite when he got too close, screamed obscenities that would have made dock workers blush. He took it all silently. His face was blank. Empty. Like someone had scooped out everything that made him Cade and left just a shell. He lifted her. She was still fighting, still screaming, and carried her through corridors she didn't recognize. Deeper into the palace. Toward the guards instead of away. No. No, 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 Cade. Please, please, tears now, streaming down her face, and she hated herself for them, but couldn't stop. Whatever I did, I'm sorry. Just tell me what I did wrong. Nothing. Not even a flicker of acknowledgement. Was it the job in Blackmore? The client I turned down? Did I say something? Do something? Her voice was breaking, words tumbling over each other. Cade, please, we're partners. We've been partners for 3 years. You can't just. The palace gates loomed ahead. Massive. Ancient. Carved with wolves in various stages of the hunt. No. And oh, Cade, don't do this. Don't leave me here. Cade. He set her down at the gates with surprising gentleness. adjusted the ropes so they wouldn't cut off her circulation completely. Even now, even betraying her, he was careful not to hurt her more than necessary. Then he knocked 3 times on the gate. The sound echoed like a death knell. Finally looked at her. Really looked at her, and for just a second, she saw something in his eyes. Anguish so deep it made her chest ache. Regret that seemed to swallow him whole. His lips moved. Barely a whisper, "Survive." Then he turned and walked away. "Cade!" She lunged after him, but the ropes held. "Cade, you bastard! Come back here. Don't you dare walk away from me." He kept walking. "I trusted you." Her voice cracked, raw and bleeding. "I trusted you and you." He disappeared into the darkness like he'd never existed at all. Like 3 years of partnership, of watching each other's backs, of late nights planning jobs and early mornings celebrating successful scores, like all of it meant nothing. Sera sagged against the gates, tears streaming, throat raw from screaming. The gates opened behind her. She didn't turn. Didn't want to see what was coming. Well. The voice was cultured, amused, dangerous. "What do we have here?" Hands not rough, surprisingly gentle, lifted her to her feet and turned her around. Sera looked up into the face of Alpha King Theron. He was younger than she'd expected. Maybe 40, with silver threading through dark hair, amber eyes that seemed to see straight through her, and a face that would have been handsome if not for the absolute coldness radiating from him. This was a man who'd killed. Often. Without hesitation. And she'd just been delivered to his doorstep. A memory thief, he mused. Reaching into her jacket, she flinched, but his hand was quick, practiced, and pulling out the leather pouch. He opened it, and Prince Adrian's memory sphere gleamed in his palm. And not just any memory. "My son's." Sera said nothing. What could she say? The evidence was literally in his hand. "Do you know what we do to thieves in my territory?" Theron asked conversationally. "Kill them," Sera rasped. "Usually, yes. Quick. Efficient. A warning to others." He studied the memory sphere, and something flickered across his face. "Grief, maybe. Quickly suppressed. But you're special." "I didn't," she stopped. What was the point? It was just a job. Just a job. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You violated my son's eternal rest, stole his final moments, planned to sell them to the highest bidder, and it was just a job?" "Yes. Honest." "I appreciate that." He gestured to his guards. "Take her to the East Tower. Comfortable chambers. Good food. She's not a prisoner." Sera blinked. "What?" "Oh, you're definitely not free to leave," Theron clarified. "But you're not a prisoner. You're an employee." "I don't understand." "You will." He leaned in close, and she could smell pine and smoke and something wild. "You're going to dive into my son's memories. You're going to find out who killed him. And you're going to help me destroy them. And if I refuse? Then I'll find another memory thief. Though none have your particular talents." His eyes glittered. "I've had you investigated, Sera. 3 years in the black market. 63 jobs. 0 failures. They say you can extract memories from corpses weeks dead. They say you can dive deeper than anyone alive. They say a lot of things. Are they true?" She met his eyes. "Yes." "Good." He straightened. "Then we have a deal. You work for me, find my son's killer, and I let you live. Refuse and—" He shrugged. "Well, you know what happens to thieves. It wasn't really a choice." "Fine," Sera said. "I'll do it." "Excellent." Theron turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Sera? That partner of yours. The one who delivered you so nicely to my door." Her heart clenched. "What about him?" "I'm going to make him pay for what he did to you." The Alpha King's smile was razor sharp. "And you're going to watch. I hope you are still following us in this journey. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button." The chambers were beautiful. That was Sera's first coherent thought after the guards deposited her in the East Tower and removed her bindings. Beautiful, expensive, and completely wrong. She'd expected a cell. Chains. Maybe torture if the Alpha King was feeling traditional. Instead, a sitting room with plush furniture, a bedroom with a canopy bed that looked softer than clouds, a bathroom with actual hot water, and windows that overlooked the palace gardens. Gilded cage, she thought. Still a cage. She tested the door. Locked from the outside, of course. The windows were too high to jump from without breaking both legs, and even if she survived the fall, the gardens were patrolled by guards. She'd counted 6 just in the time it took to cross the sitting room. Sera sank onto the bed, finally allowing herself to process everything. Cade had betrayed her. 3 years of partnership. 3 years of watching each other's backs, splitting profits, planning increasingly dangerous jobs together. 3 years off. She cut that thought off. It didn't matter what else it had been. What she'd thought it had been. He tied her up and delivered her to certain death. Why? That was the question burning through her mind. Cade wasn't cruel. Wasn't greedy enough to sell out a partner for money. Wasn't cowardly enough to save himself by sacrificing someone else. So why? The memory of his face haunted her. That hollowness. That anguish in his eyes before he walked away. Survive, he'd whispered. What did that even mean? A knock at the door interrupted her spiraling thoughts. Come in, she called, then felt stupid. It was locked. She couldn't exactly refuse entry. The door opened. A servant entered with a tray of food, actual good food, roasted meat and fresh bread and vegetables that hadn't been salvaged from market scraps. The servant was young, maybe 19, with nervous hands and eyes that wouldn't quite meet Sera's. The Alpha King requests your presence in 1 hour, the girl said, setting the tray on the table. For your first memory dive. Already? He's been waiting 3 months for answers. He's not a patient man. The servant turned to leave. Wait, Sera called. What's your name? The girl hesitated. Maya. Maya, can I ask you something? I suppose. The Alpha King's son. Prince Adrian. What was he like? Maya's expression softened. Kind. Too kind for this place, maybe. He actually learned our names, the servants. Asked about our families. Helped my brother once, when he was sick. Paid for a healer without being asked. He sounds like a good person. He was. Maya's eyes hardened. Whoever killed him deserves whatever the Alpha King does to them. With that, she left. Sera stared at the food. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since yesterday, but nausea churned too hard for her to manage more than a few bites of bread. In 1 hour, she'd dive into the memory again. She'd experience Prince Adrian's death in vivid detail. She'd feel the knife sliding between his ribs, the terror, the pain, the slow fade into nothing. And she'd do it while the man's grieving father watched. Sera forced herself to eat. She'd need strength for this. The memory chamber was deep in the palace, accessed through corridors that seemed designed to disorient. Sera followed the guards in silence, committing every turn to memory out of habit. Not that it mattered, she had nowhere to run. The chamber itself was circular, maybe 30 feet across, with walls lined in polished silver mirrors that reflected and amplified psychic energy. Sera had worked in places like this before. Memory diving was easier with the right setup, and whoever designed this room knew what they were doing. Alpha King Theron waited in the center, standing beside a simple chair. And beside him, Sera's breath caught. Cade. He was on his knees, head bowed, wrists bound behind his back. And around his neck, a silver collar. Not decorative. Not jewelry. A collar like one would put on a dog, with a small tag that read, Traitor. No, Sera whispered. Cade's eyes lifted to hers. For a moment, just a moment, she saw anguish so deep it made her chest ache. Then his face went blank again. Theron smiled. Ah, good. You're here. I wanted you to see this before we begin. See what? The beginning of his payment. Theron's hand settled on Cade's head. Possessive. Degrading. You see, your partner thought he was very clever. He made a deal with someone, sold you out, sold my son's memory. Thought he'd collect his payment and disappear. Theron's grip tightened in Cade's hair, forcing his head back. But I don't forgive betrayal. And I certainly don't forget. Those amber eyes lifted to Sera. He threw you to the wolves, little thief. So now he lives among them. What are you? From this moment forward, Cade belongs to me. My personal servant. My errand boy. My pet. Theron released Cade's hair with a shove. He'll serve me. He'll watch you work for me. He'll see you grow strong while he scrubs floors and brings me wine. Every single day. Sera's hands clenched into fists. You can't. I can. I have. And there's more. Theron circled Cade like a predator. He's forbidden from speaking to you. If he tries, the collar tightens. Eventually, it chokes. So, if you have questions for him, Sera, his smile was poison. You'll have to wonder, why are you doing this? Because he harmed you. And you're mine now, me employee, my asset. I protect what's mine. Theron moved to stand directly in front of her. This is my revenge, not yours. He threw you to the wolves, now he lives among them, powerless. This is what I do to traitors. He snapped his fingers. On your feet. Cade stood mechanically. His eyes found Sera's again, and she saw him mouth something. I'm sorry. The collar contracted. Cade's hands flew to his throat, choking, face reddening, and Sera lurched forward. Stop, she shouted. You're killing him. Theron raised a hand. The collar loosened just enough for Cade to gasp air. He knows the rules, Theron said mildly. No communication with you. He breaks them, he suffers. Simple. Guards appeared and grabbed Cade's arms. Take him to the servants' quarters, Theron commanded. 3rd floor. Make sure everyone knows what he is. They dragged Cade toward the door. He didn't fight. Didn't resist. Just let them pull him away, and the last thing Sera saw before he disappeared was that anguish in his eyes. Then she was alone with the Alpha King. Now, Theron said, all business. Shall we begin? Sera sat in the chair, still shaking from what she'd just witnessed. Theron handed her Prince Adrian's memory sphere, still warm, still pulsing with residual energy. I need you to go deeper than before, he said. The memory is corrupted. Fragmented. But I need to know what my son knew. Who he was investigating. Who he planned to expose. Memory diving isn't perfect, Sera managed. Death corrupts everything. And 3 months dead means. I'm aware of the limitations. Dear best. It wasn't a request. Sera closed her eyes, centered herself, and pressed the memory sphere to her forehead. Then she dove. The world reformed around her. She was Prince Adrian, young, idealistic, burning with righteous fury. The council chamber. Long table, high-backed chairs, portraits of past Alpha Kings glaring down with painted eyes. 6 counselors seated. His father at the head of the table, expression unreadable. And there, at the Alpha King's right hand, Beta Matthias. 2nd in command. Trusted advisor of 20 years. You're stealing from them. Adrian's voice, her voice, for she was him now, shook with barely controlled rage. From our own people. I have proof. Beta Matthias smiled. Calm. Unbothered. That's quite an accusation, Prince Adrian. I hope you have evidence to support such claims. I do. Adrian slammed documents onto the table. Ledgers showing discrepancies. Letters arranging deals with rival packs. Contracts selling pack resources at criminally low prices, with the difference going to somewhere. Someone. The numbers swam before Sera's eyes. Hundreds of thousands. Maybe millions. All disappearing into accounts she couldn't trace in the corrupted memory. These could be fabricated, Matthias said smoothly. They're not. Enough. The Alpha King's voice cut through the argument. Adrian, we'll discuss this privately. Council dismissed. The counselors filed out. Matthias lingered, his eyes on Adrian, cold and calculating. The memory jump corrupted section, filled with static and fragments. Later that night, Adrian in his chambers, pacing. Knock at the door. Opening it to find Beta Matthias standing there, smiles sharp as knives. You should have listened when I told you to drop this investigation, Matthias said, stepping inside uninvited. Get out. In a moment. First, let me explain something to you, little prince. Matthias circled the room like a predator. I've been embezzling from this pack for 15 years. Carefully. Methodically. And I've built something with that money: alliances, power structures, fail-safes. My father will. Your father won't believe you. You're his disappointment. The son who can't shift properly. The weakling. I'm his loyal beta of 2 decades. Matthias stopped in front of Adrian. Even if you have evidence, I have plausible deniability. And I have allies on the council who will swear to my character. You won't get away with this. I already have. Matthias leaned in close. And if you continue this crusade, people will die. Starting with that little memory thief you've been sneaking around with. Adrian's heart stopped. Memory Sera felt its spike of fear, not for himself but for her. For Sera. You leave her out of this, Adrian growled. Then drop the investigation. Burn your evidence. Forget you ever suspected me. Never. Matthias sighed. I was afraid you'd say that. You're just like your mother, too noble for your own good. She couldn't be bought or frightened either. Something in his tone made Adrian go still. What did you say? Your mother. The late queen. Such a tragic accident, falling from that balcony. Matthias's smile widened. Although between you and me, the railing was quite sturdy. It took significant force to break it. Horror crashed through Adrian. You killed her. I removed an obstacle. Just like I'm about to remove you. The memory shattered, jumping forward. Running through corridors, documents clutched to his chest. Had to reach his father, had to tell him everything. Footsteps behind him, fast and getting closer. Turning a corner, and there. A blade. Pain exploded in Adrian's back, between his ribs, precise and practiced. He fell. Looked up at his killer. The face was still blurred, corrupted, but the voice. Nothing personal, princeling. Just following orders. Not Matthias. Someone else. An assassin. Adrian's vision was fading. Blood pooling beneath him. Cold seeping into his bones. His last thought, Sera. He had to warn Sera. Had to. Darkness. Sera tore herself out of the memory with a gasp that sounded more like a sob. She was shaking. Tears streamed down her face. Adrian's grief, Adrian's fear, Adrian's desperate love for her bleeding through the memory barrier. What did you see? Theron's voice was tight with barely controlled emotion. Sera looked up at him and suddenly understood why he'd been so certain his son was murdered. Beta Matthias, she whispered. He's been embezzling from you for 15 years. Your son discovered it. Tried to expose him. And? Matthias threatened him. Told him to back down or people would die. Sera swallowed hard. Including me. Adrian and I, we were involved. Matthias knew. Used it as leverage. Theron's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Continue. Matthias killed your wife. Years ago. Made it look like an accident. The words tumbled out. And when Adrian wouldn't back down, Matthias had him assassinated. I couldn't see the killer's face, the memories too corrupted, but it wasn't Matthias himself. He hired someone. Silence. The Alpha King stood perfectly still, but Sera could see the rage building beneath the surface. His eyes blazed gold. His hands clenched into fists, claws extending. Then he breathed. Controlled it. Forced it down with visible effort. Good, he said softly. Very good. Good. Sera stared. Your son is dead, your wife was murdered, and you say good? I say good because now I know. Now I can plan. His smile was terrifying. But I need more than corrupted memories and your testimony. I need evidence. The documents Adrian gathered. Proof that will convince the entire pack and justify what I'm about to do to Matthias. The documents in the memory, Adrian was running with them when he died. He must have hidden them somewhere first. Where? I don't know. The memory fragmented before Sera stopped. But if I dive again, deeper, I might be able to find out where he stashed them. Tomorrow, Theron said. You're exhausted. He was right. Memory diving this deep always took a toll, but experiencing a death was exponentially worse. Sera felt wrung out, hollow, like she'd died herself. One more thing, Theron said. My son cared for you. It wasn't a question. Yes, Sera whispered. Did you care for him? She wanted to lie. Wanted to say it was just business, just another black market connection. But the memory was too fresh. Adrian's love too real. Yes. Theron studied her for a long moment. Then we have that in common. We both lost someone we loved to Matthias's greed. He moved toward the door, then paused. Cade will escort you back to your chambers. No. It wasn't a request. Theron's eyes glittered. He needs to see you. Needs to watch you walk away from him the way he walked away from you. That's part of his payment. The door opened. Guards brought Cade in. He looked worse than before. Someone had hit him. There was a bruise forming on his jaw, blood at the corner of his mouth. Take her to the East Tower, Theron commanded. And Cade? Remember the rules. Cade nodded mutely. They walked in silence through the corridors. Halfway to her chambers, Cade stopped. His hand tightened on Sera's arm, urgent, desperate. She looked up at him. His eyes were haunted, pleading, and for a moment she saw the Cade she'd known. The partner who'd watched her back. The man who'd pulled her out of a burning building in Silverpine. The friend who'd stayed up all night when she was sick with fever, changing cold compresses and forcing her to drink water. What? She demanded, pulling her arm free. What could you possibly have to say to me? He shook his head frantically, then pulled a small piece of paper from his pocket and pressed it into her palm. The collar tightened immediately. Cade stumbled, clutching his throat, face reddening. Sera unfolded the paper with shaking hands. For words, written in shaky handwriting. He has my sister. The world tilted. Cade's sister. Mira. She'd forgotten, in all the betrayal and rage, she'd forgotten he had a sister. A younger sister, 16 when their pack was slaughtered 5 years ago. Presumed dead but never confirmed. Never found. Sera had attended the memorial service with Cade. Held him while he sobbed. Helped him search the ruins for any sign of her. They'd never found a body. No, Cade, stop, don't try to talk. Sera grabbed him, steadying him as he gasped for air. The collar was choking him. His lips were turning blue. Guards, she screamed. Guards, help. They came running. One of them touched the collar. There was a clasp Sera hadn't noticed, and loosened it just enough for Cade to drag in a desperate breath. Communicating with the prisoner, the guard said flatly. That's a violation. He didn't speak. Doesn't matter. Alpha King's orders were clear. No communication of any kind. The guard looked at Cade with disgust. Take him to the discipline chamber. No, wait, he was just. But they were already dragging Cade away. He didn't fight. Didn't resist. Just let them pull him down a different corridor, and the last thing Sera saw was him mouthing 2 more words. Protect yourself. Then he was gone. Sera stood alone in the empty corridor, clutching the note, understanding crashing over her like a wave. He didn't betray her for money. He didn't betray her because he wanted to. Someone had his sister. Someone threatened Mira's life if he didn't deliver Sera and the memory to the Alpha King's gates. But who? And why? The answer hit her like a physical blow. Beta Matthias. He was the one who'd hired them for the job. The mysterious client who'd approached them in that tavern 3 weeks ago, face hidden in shadow, voice disguised, offering a fortune to extract Prince Adrian's final memory. They'd thought it was just another wealthy noble wanting blackmail material or seeking closure. It had been a setup. Matthias had orchestrated everything. Found Cade's weakness, his missing sister. Threatened her life. Forced him to bring Sera to the palace with the stolen memory, probably planning for the Alpha King to execute her on sight and destroy the evidence. But Theron hadn't executed her. He'd put her to work instead. Which meant Matthias's plan had failed. Which meant Mira was still in danger. Which meant Cade was being tortured and humiliated for a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. Sera sank against the wall, the note crumpling in her fist. She'd been so angry, so certain of his betrayal. And he'd taken it. Taken her rage, her hatred, her screaming, taken it all without defending himself, because defending himself meant explaining, and explaining meant the collar would choke him to death. Damn you, Theron, she whispered. But even as she said it, she knew the Alpha King had no idea about Mira. He thought Cade was just a greedy traitor. He was punishing what he thought was a simple betrayal. The truth was so much worse. Sera pushed herself upright and continued to her chambers alone. Her mind was racing, trying to piece together the timeline. 5 years ago, their pack slaughtered. Mira disappears. 3 weeks ago, mysterious client hires them to steal Prince Adrian's memory. 3 days ago, the heist. The betrayal. The delivery to the Alpha King's gates. Now, Cade being tortured while his sister was held hostage somewhere, probably by the same man who'd murdered the queen and the prince. She had to tell Theron. But would he believe her? She was a convicted thief working under duress. Cade was a traitor who'd delivered her to certain death. They had no proof Matthias was involved beyond a corrupted memory and a hastily scrawled note. Sera reached her chambers and locked the door behind her. She smoothed out the crumpled note and read it again. "He has my sister." For words that changed everything. Sera couldn't sleep. She paced her gilded cage, mind racing, while somewhere in the palace Cade was being punished for trying to communicate with her. What were they doing to him? The guard had said discipline chamber like it was a place, an actual room designed for punishment. She'd seen the bruise on his jaw. The blood. That had been from other servants, probably. Or guards asserting dominance. Reminding the traitor of his place. But the discipline chamber would be worse. Much worse. Sera pressed her forehead against the cool window glass and stared out at the gardens below. Moonlight painted everything silver and shadow. Beautiful and cold. Like this entire situation. She needed a plan. Needed to figure out how to expose Matthias, save Mira, and somehow convince the Alpha King that Cade wasn't the villain here. But first, she needed proof. Tomorrow, she'd dive into Adrian's memories again. Find out where he'd hidden the evidence. Get the documents that would prove Matthias's embezzlement and tie him to the murders. Then she'd have leverage. Then she could negotiate. A sound made her turn. The door was opening. Maya, the young servant, slipped inside carrying a tray with tea and what looked like medical supplies. "I'm not supposed to be here," Maya whispered. "But I thought you might need this." "Need what?" "Tea with valerian root. Helps you sleep after memory diving. And..." She hesitated. "I brought bandages. In case you wanted to check on someone." Sera's heart clenched. "Cade." Maya nodded. "The discipline chamber is on the second floor, east wing. The guards change shift in an hour. There's a 10-minute window when the corridor is empty." "Why are you helping me?" "Because Prince Adrian would have." Maya set the tray down. He hated the discipline chamber. Tried to get his father to shut it down. Said it was barbaric. Her eyes met Sera's. "And because I saw your partner's face when they dragged him away." "That's not the face of a man who betrayed someone for profit. That's the face of a man who's already broken." She moved toward the door. "Maya," Sera called. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just be careful. If the Alpha King finds out you left your chambers, there will be consequences." She left as silently as she'd come. Sera stared at the medical supplies. This was stupid. Reckless. If she got caught, Theron would what? Lock her up? He needed her to find Adrian's killer. She was valuable. But Cade wasn't. Cade was disposable. A traitor getting what he deserved. Except he wasn't a traitor. He was a brother trying to save his sister. Sera grabbed the bandages and waited for the shift change. The discipline chamber was easy to find once she knew where to look. The corridor on the second floor, east wing, was dark and silent. Sera moved quickly, keeping to the shadows, counting down the minutes until the guards returned. The chamber door was unlocked. Why bother locking it when the person inside was already restrained? Sera pushed it open. The room was small, windowless, lit by a single torch. And in the center, Cade. He was chained to a post, arms above his head, shirt torn and bloody. Someone had whipped him. The marks crisscrossed his back in angry red lines, some deep enough to still be bleeding. "Oh God," Sera whispered. His head lifted. His eyes widened when he saw her. He shook his head frantically. "Go, get out, don't be here," but the collar prevented him from speaking. Sera ignored him. She crossed to where he hung and started examining the wounds. "This is going to hurt," she warned, dampening a cloth with water from the flask Maya had provided. Cade flinched when she touched his back, but made no sound. Couldn't make a sound without triggering the collar. Sera worked in silence, cleaning the wounds as gently as she could, applying the salve Maya had included. Her hands shook. She'd seen Cade hurt before. Knife wounds, burns, broken bones, occupational hazards of their profession. But this was different. This was systematic. Deliberate. Designed not to kill but to humiliate and hurt. "I know about Mira," she said quietly. Cade went rigid. I know Matthias has her. I know he forced you to betray me. Sera moved around to face him. And I know you're being punished for something that wasn't your fault. Tears streaked down Cade's face. Silent. Helpless. I'm going to fix this, Sera promised. I'm going to find Adrian's evidence, expose Matthias, and get your sister back. And then, she reached up and touched the collar around his neck. Then I'm going to make Theron remove this. Cade shook his head. His eyes said what his voice couldn't. It's too dangerous. Save yourself. No, Sera said firmly. We're partners. We don't leave each other behind. She managed a weak smile. Even when one of us does something monumentally stupid. A sound in the corridor, footsteps. The guards were returning early. I have to go, Sera whispered. But I'll come back. I promise. She fled, slipping out of the chamber and into a side passage just as the guards rounded the corner. Her heart pounded as she made her way back to the East Tower. She just risked everything to bandage a traitor's wounds. But he wasn't a traitor. And she was going to prove it. The next morning, Theron summoned her to the memory chamber again. This time, Cade wasn't there. Probably still chained in the discipline chamber, or maybe released to his servant duties. Sera hoped he was all right. Hoped the wounds wouldn't get infected. You look tired, Theron observed. Memory diving takes a toll. Can you dive again today? Yes. Sera sat in the chair. I need to go deeper this time. Find out where Adrian hid the evidence. Do it. She took the memory sphere, pressed it to her forehead, and dove. This time, she went earlier in the timeline. Before the confrontation. Before the murder. She was Adrian, alone in his chambers, surrounded by documents. Evidence of Matthias's crimes spread across every surface. Ledgers. Letters. Contracts. All of it damning. But not safe. If Matthias found this, he'd destroy it. Kill everyone Adrian had told. Including Sera. Adrian gathered the documents carefully, his hands shaking. He had to hide them somewhere Matthias would never think to look. Somewhere even his father's guards wouldn't find them if they searched his chambers. He left the palace through a servant's entrance. Walked through the city streets at midnight, hood pulled low. The memory archives. Of course. The archives were a neutral ground, run by the Memory Keepers Guild. Even the Alpha King didn't have authority there. And Adrian had connections. He'd been studying with the guild, learning about memory preservation, trying to understand his own weak connection to the wolf within him. He entered through a side door, climbed stairs that spiraled upward into darkness. The keeper who met him was old, kind-eyed. Prince Adrian. It's late. Master Theron, I need a favor. Adrian pulled out the documents. I need you to hide these. Somewhere safe. Somewhere no one can find them unless I specifically retrieve them. What are these? Proof of treason. If anything happens to me. Adrian swallowed hard. If I die, give these to my father. Tell him Beta Matthias is responsible. Master Theron's expression grew grave. This is dangerous knowledge, my prince. I know, but I have to do this. Adrian pressed the documents into the old man's hands. Please. Very well. I'll place them in your personal vault. Only you or your designated heir can access it. My heir. It's protocol. In case of your death, someone must be able to retrieve important documents. Master Theron studied him. Who would you name? Adrian didn't hesitate. Sera. Sera Blackwood. Memory Sera felt his certainty. His love. The memory thief? Master Theron raised an eyebrow. She's more than that. She's... Adrian smiled slightly. She's everything. Sera pulled out of the memory gasping. What did you see? Theron demanded. The memory archives. Adrian hid the evidence there, in his personal vault. Sera looked up at the Alpha King. And he named me as his heir. I can access it. Theron's eyes gleamed. Then we go. Now. There's something else. Sera stood. I need to tell you about Cade. Your traitorous partner? What about him? He's not a traitor. He was blackmailed. Sera pulled out the crumpled note. Beta Matthias has his sister. Has had her for 5 years, since our pack was slaughtered. Matthias forced Cade to deliver me to your gates, or Mira would die. Theron took the note, read it, his expression unreadable. You expect me to believe this? Yes, because it fits. Matthias hired us to steal your son's memory. Set us up to fail. Probably planned for you to execute me on sight and destroy the evidence before I could dive deep enough to see his face. Sera stepped closer. Cade is a victim here, not a villain. He still threw you to the wolves. To save his sister's life. Wouldn't you have done the same for Adrian? The question hung in the air. Finally, Theron spoke. If what you say is true, then we need to move carefully. Matthias can't know we suspect him. Can't know about the archives. So you believe me? I believe you have no reason to lie about this. You gain nothing from defending Cade. Theron moved toward the door. We'll retrieve the evidence first. Then we'll deal with Matthias. And if your partner's sister is truly alive. His eyes met hers. Then we'll find her. The memory archives stood in the heart of the city, a massive structure of white stone that predated the current palace by centuries. It was neutral ground. Even during pack wars, the archives remained untouched, protected by ancient treaties and the Memory Keepers Guild's formidable reputation. Theron traveled in disguise, a simple cloak hiding his identity. Sera walked beside him, flanked by 2 guards dressed as merchants. The guild won't ask questions, Theron said quietly as they approached the entrance. But they'll remember we were here. If Matthias has spies among them. He might, Sera interrupted. If he's been embezzling for 15 years, he's had time to plant people everywhere. Then we move quickly. The entrance hall was vast, lined with crystalline containers holding memory spheres from centuries past. Hundreds of thousands of them, organized by date, by family, by significance. The collective history of their people, preserved forever. An elderly keeper approached, not Master Torin from the memory, but someone just as ancient, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. Welcome to the archives. How may I assist you? I need to access Prince Adrian's personal vault, Sera said. The keeper's expression shifted surprise, then sadness. The late prince. My condolences. And you are? Sera Blackwood. His designated heir. The keeper studied her for a long moment. Follow me. They descended into the lower levels, where private vaults were kept. The air grew colder, heavier with the weight of preserved memories and guarded secrets. The keeper stopped before a door marked with Adrian's name and seal. Place your hand here, she instructed, indicating a crystal panel. Sera pressed her palm against it. The crystal glowed, warm beneath her skin, reading something in her blood or her essence or her connection to Adrian through shared memories. The door opened. Inside was a small room, empty except for a locked chest in the center. I'll give you privacy, the keeper said, withdrawing. Theron waited until they were alone, then moved to the chest. Can you open it? Sera knelt beside it. The lock was complex, designed to respond to specific memory patterns rather than a physical key. She placed both hands on the lid and pulled, not extracting, but reading the memory imprinted on the lock itself. Adrian's hands, trembling as he set the documents inside. Keep her safe, he whispered to the empty room. Keep Sera safe. The lock clicked into place, bound to his essence and hers. The chest opened. Inside, documents. Dozens of them. Ledgers with Matthias's handwriting showing years of embezzlement. Letters arranging deals with rival packs, selling information, skimming taxes. Contracts that proved he'd been building a power base outside Theron's authority. And at the bottom, a journal. Sera pulled it out, opened it. Adrian's handwriting, documenting everything. Dates, amounts, names of people involved. A timeline of his investigation. And on the last page, written the day before he died. If you're reading this, I'm already dead. Matthias killed me, just like he killed my mother. Father, I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to stop him. Sera, I'm sorry I put you in danger by loving you. But someone has to stop him before he destroys everything our pack stands for. The evidence is all here. Use it. End him. And Sera, if you're the one reading this, know that I loved you. In every timeline, in every life, I would have chosen you. Adrian. Tears blurred Sera's vision. Theron read over her shoulder, his face carved from stone. This is everything, he said quietly. This is enough to execute him 10 times over. What do? We call a council meeting. Tonight. Present the evidence publicly so he can't claim fabrication or conspiracy. Theron's eyes blazed gold. And then I make him pay for murdering my wife and my son. He gathered the documents carefully, reverently, like they were sacred relics. Because they were. They were Adrian's last words. His final act of defiance. There's one more thing, Sera said. Matthias has Cade's sister. If we move against him publicly, he might kill her out of spite. Theron paused. Where would he keep a hostage for 5 years? Somewhere he controls completely. Somewhere he visits regularly without suspicion. Sera thought back to the memories, to Matthias's confident threats. His estate. It has to be his estate. Then we split our focus. I'll prepare for the council meeting. You'll take a team and retrieve the girl. Me? You're the only one who knows what she looks like. And Cade trusts you. Theron's expression softened slightly. If what you say is true, if he was blackmailed, then he deserves to know his sister is safe before we destroy the man who took her. They returned to the palace in silence. Theron sent Sera back to her chambers while he made arrangements, promising updates within the hour. Sera paced her room, mind racing. A rescue mission. To Matthias's estate. To save a girl she'd never met but whose existence had cost her everything. A knock at the door. Come in. Cade entered, escorted by guards. He looked worse than yesterday, exhausted, moving stiffly from the whip marks, the collars still locked around his throat. The guards left them alone. Sera crossed to him immediately. Are you all right? He nodded, not trusting himself to speak. I found Adrian's evidence. We're moving against Matthias tonight. Sera gripped his shoulders. And I'm going to get Mira back. Cade's eyes widened. His lips formed a single word. How? Theron's giving me a team. We're raiding Matthias's estate. Sera pulled out a piece of paper and pencil. I need you to draw me a map. Everything you remember about Matthias from the job. Where he lives, layout of his property, security measures. Anything. Cade took the pencil with shaking hands and began to draw. The estate was massive, a compound really, with multiple buildings, high walls, guard rotations. He marked weak points, servant entrances, places where the walls could be scaled. And in the center of the main house, he drew a small room in the basement. Circled it 3 times. Her? Sera asked silently. Cade nodded. How do you know? He wrote below the drawing. Matthias showed me. Proof he had her. Before the job. Sera studied the map. The basement is the most heavily guarded area. Cade nodded again, expression grim. We'll need a distraction. Something to pull guards away from the main house. More writing, fire. Northwest corner. Storage buildings. Guards will prioritize putting it out. Good. Sera folded the map. I'm bringing her home, Cade. I promise. He grabbed her hand, squeezed it. His eyes said everything the caller wouldn't let him speak. Thank you. I'm sorry. Please be careful. I can't lose you too. I know, Sera whispered. I know. The guards returned to take him back to his duties. Sera watched him go, then studied the map again. This was going to be dangerous. Possibly suicidal. But she'd made a promise. Theron assembled the team in a private chamber, 6 of his best warriors, all personally loyal to him, all with reasons to hate Matthias. This is a covert operation, Theron explained. Matthias can't know we're coming until it's too late. We move fast, extract the girl, and get out. He gestured to Sera. She'll lead the infiltration team. You'll follow her orders as if they were mine. One of the warriors, a scarred woman with cold eyes, spoke up. With respect, Alpha King, she's a convicted thief. Why should we trust her? Because she knows the layout. She has the most to lose if this fails, and she's the only one who can identify Mira on sight. Theron's tone brooked no argument. You have your orders. The warriors nodded, though Sera could see doubt in their eyes. She spread Cade's map on the table. Here's the plan. We split into 3 teams. Team 1, the distraction. You'll set fire to the storage buildings here and here. Make it look accidental, like a lantern was knocked over. She pointed to the marked locations. Team 2, perimeter control. You'll take out guards along the walls, quietly, and secure our escape route. Team 3, that's me and 2 others, infiltrate the main house, locate Mira in the basement, and extract her. What about Matthias? The scarred warrior asked. He'll be at the council meeting, Theron said. I'm personally ensuring he attends. By the time he realizes what's happening, you'll be long gone. And if something goes wrong? Sera met the warrior's eyes. Then we adapt. But we don't leave without the girl. They moved under cover of darkness, 6 warriors and 1 memory thief, traveling in separate groups to avoid suspicion. Matthias's estate sprawled across 10 acres on the city's wealthy northern edge. Even in the darkness, Sera could see the opulence, manicured gardens, ornate fountains, buildings that screamed wealth and power. All of it bought with stolen money, built on the backs of the people Matthias was supposed to serve. Team 1 moved into position near the storage buildings. Team 2 scaled the walls, silent as shadows. Sera and her 2 escorts, the scarred warrior, whose name was Kira, and a younger male warrior named Finn, approached the servants' entrance. The lock was simple. Sera picked it in 30 seconds. Inside, the house was dark and quiet. Most of the staff had retired for the night. Only a skeleton crew of guards remained, and half of them would be pulling toward the fire any moment now. Right on cue, the smell of smoke. Shouts from outside. Guards rushed past their hiding spot, heading for the northwest corner. Now, Sera whispered. They moved through the house like ghosts. Sera led them based on Cade's map, down hallways lined with expensive art, past rooms filled with furniture worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. The basement entrance was locked and guarded. 1 guard. Young. Alert. Kira moved so fast Sera barely saw it. A hand over his mouth, a blade across his throat, and he crumpled silently. Clear, Kira said. They descended into darkness. The basement was cold, damp, divided into storage rooms and what looked like cells. Cells. Sera's stomach turned. How many people had Matthias kept down here over the years? Cade's map led them to the center room. The door was locked, but Sera's picks made quick work of it. Inside, a girl. She was curled on a narrow bed, wearing clothes that had been nice once, but were now worn and dirty. Her hair was matted, her face too thin, but Sera could see the resemblance to Cade in her features. Mira looked up as they entered, eyes wide with fear. Please, she whispered. I've been good. I haven't tried to escape. Please don't. We're not here to hurt you. Sera knelt beside the bed. Your brother sent us. Cade, we're taking you home. Mira's expression transformed. Cade? Cade's alive. Yes. And he's been looking for you for 5 years. Tears streamed down Mira's face. I thought Matthias said he was dead. Said everyone was dead. He lied. Sera helped her stand. Can you walk? I think so. They moved back through the basement, up the stairs, and ran directly into Beta Matthias. Well, Matthias said, flanked by a dozen guards. I thought the council meeting felt like a trap. So I came home to check on my investments. His eyes landed on Mira, and his smile sharpened. Trying to steal what's mine, are we? She's not yours, Sera said, stepping in front of Mira. She's never been yours. I beg to differ. I've kept her fed and clothed for 5 years. That makes her mine by right of ownership. Matthias gestured to his guards. Kill the warriors. Bring the thief and the girl to me alive. The guards moved. Kira and Finn met them head-on. The basement erupted into violence, claws, teeth, blades flashing in the dim light. Sera pulled Mira behind her, mind racing. They were outnumbered. The escape route was blocked. And if Matthias took them alive, she felt for the memory sphere in her pocket. Adrian's last memory, which she'd brought for luck. An idea formed. Risky. Possibly fatal. But it might work. Matthias, she shouted over the fighting. You want the evidence your prince gathered? The proof of your embezzlement. That got his attention. The guards paused. What evidence? Matthias's voice was carefully neutral, but she saw the flash of concern in his eyes. Adrian found everything. Ledgers, letters, contracts. He hid them before you killed him. Sera pulled out the memory sphere. And I know where they are. I can show you if you let the girl go. You're bluffing. Am I? Sera held up the sphere. This is Adrian's final memory. I've dived it 3 times. Seen everything he saw, including where he stashed the documents that will end you. Matthias's expression darkened. Even if that's true, the Alpha King already has you. He'll find the evidence himself. Maybe. Eventually. But memory diving is imprecise. It could take weeks to pinpoint the exact location. Sera stepped forward. Or I could show you right now. Take you there yourself. You destroy the evidence and no one ever knows. Sera, what are you doing? Kira hissed. Sera ignored her. Well, Beta? Do we have a deal? Matthias studied her for a long moment. Then he smiled. Kill the warriors, he said. We'll take both females with us. I said let the girl go, Sera insisted, even as guards moved to flank them. She's worthless to you now. Cade already betrayed me. You got what you wanted. Matthias laughed. Did I? Because from where I stand, my carefully laid plan has unraveled spectacularly. The Alpha King didn't execute you. Instead, you've been diving into memories, uncovering secrets. His eyes narrowed. And now you're here, in my basement, trying to steal my leverage. Your leverage is gone. Cade's already in the Alpha King's custody. You can't threaten him with his sister anymore. True. But I can use her for other purposes. Matthias moved closer, studying Mira like she was merchandise. She's quite pretty now that she's grown. There are clients who would pay handsomely for a young wolf from a destroyed pack. No family to miss her. No one to ask questions. Mira whimpered. Rage flooded through Sera, hot and blinding. You touch her and You'll what? You're surrounded, outmatched, and out of options. Matthias gestured lazily. Take them both. Kill anyone who resists. The guards closed in. Kira and Finn fought viciously, taking down 3 guards before the numbers overwhelmed them. Finn went down first, a blade through his shoulder. Kira lasted longer, her claws ripping through 2 more before someone got behind her. Sera grabbed Mira's hand and ran. Not toward the exit, that was blocked. Instead, she ran deeper into the basement, into the maze of storage rooms and cells, pulling Mira behind her. Where are we going? Mira gasped. Anywhere but here. They burst into a storage room filled with crates. Sera slammed the door and shoved a heavy crate against it. It wouldn't hold long, but it would buy them seconds. Can you shift? Sera asked urgently. Mira shook her head. Matthias had a witch put a binding on me. I can't access my wolf. Of course he did. Couldn't risk his hostage shifting and escaping. Footsteps thundered in the corridor outside. Matthias's voice rang out, calm and amused. There's nowhere to run, little thief. This is my house. I know every corner, every hiding spot. Sera looked around frantically. The room had 1 small window, too high and too narrow for either of them to fit through. No other exits. They were trapped. I'm sorry, Mira whispered. I'm so sorry. If it wasn't for me, Cade wouldn't have. None of this is your fault. Sera squeezed her hand. Your brother loves you. He did what he had to do to keep you alive. And now you're going to die because of me. Not yet, I'm not. Sera pulled out Adrian's memory sphere again. An idea was forming, desperate, dangerous, but it might work. Memory diving went both ways. She could pull memories from the dead, yes. But she could also project them. Force someone to experience a memory so vividly they couldn't distinguish it from reality. It was forbidden technique. Banned by the Memory Keepers Guild because it could break minds, leave people catatonic, trapped in false realities. But Sera had learned it anyway, back when she was young and stupid and thought rules didn't apply to her. She'd used it once, 5 years ago, on the wolf who'd killed her parents during the pack slaughter. Trapped him in a memory loop of his own death until his mind shattered. She'd sworn never to do it again. But desperate times. The door splintered. Guards began forcing their way through. Close your eyes, Sera told Mira. Cover your ears. And no matter what you hear, don't look. What are you? Trust me. Mira obeyed. Sera crushed the memory sphere in her palm, releasing Adrian's final moments in a burst of psychic energy. Then she pushed. The memory exploded outward like a shockwave. Every guard in the corridor was hit simultaneously, their minds suddenly flooded with Prince Adrian's death. They weren't watching it, they were experiencing it. Feeling the knife slide between their ribs. Feeling the blood drain from their bodies. Feeling the cold creep of death. They screamed. All of them, screaming in perfect unison as they died over and over in their minds. Sera dropped to her knees, blood streaming from her nose. The psychic cost of projecting a memory to multiple targets at once was enormous. Her head felt like it was splitting open. But it had worked. The guards were down, writhing on the floor, lost in the death loop. All except Matthias. He stood in the doorway, shaking, but still conscious. His mental shields were stronger than his guards. Years of political manipulation had taught him to protect his mind. Clever, he gasped, blood trickling from his own nose. But you can't maintain that for long. And when you collapse, he smiled through the pain. I'll be waiting. He was right. Sera could already feel her strength failing. Maintaining the memory projection was like holding up a building with her bare hands. Every second, it got heavier. She had maybe 2 minutes before her mind gave out completely. Run, she told Mira. The guards are down. Get out of here. Find your way back to the palace. Tell Theron everything. I'm not leaving you. You have to. Sera's vision was blurring. Your brother didn't sacrifice everything just for you to die in this basement. Go. Mira hesitated, then ran, leaping over the writhing guards. Matthias lunged for her, but Sera intensified the projection, forcing him to experience Adrian's death more vividly. He screamed, falling to his knees. Mira disappeared into the darkness. Sera held the projection for 10 more seconds. 20. 30. Then her mind gave out. She collapsed, and the memory projection shattered. Sera woke to pain. Her head throbbed. Her nose was crusted with dried blood. And her hands were chained above her head, wrists locked in iron shackles attached to the ceiling. She was back in one of the basement cells. Matthias sat in a chair across from her, looking worse for wear. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands shaking slightly. Forcing someone to experience a memory projection left psychological scars. Even breaking free from it came with a cost. That, he said quietly, was the most unpleasant experience of my life. And I've had some truly terrible experiences. Good, Sera rasped. The girl got away. Unfortunate, but not critical. I have you, and that's what matters. Matthias stood, moving closer. Now, you're going to tell me where Adrian hid the evidence. No. I think you will. You see, I have ways of making people talk. And unlike my guards, I don't mind getting my hands dirty. He pulled out a knife. Sera tensed, but there was nowhere to go. The chains held her firmly. Let's start simple, Matthias said. Where are the documents? Go to hell. He pressed the knife against her arm, just below her shoulder. Not cutting yet, just pressure. A promise. I can make this last hours. Days, even. The human body can endure remarkable amounts of pain before shutting down. His eyes were cold. And I've had 15 years to perfect my interrogation techniques. You're going to die tonight, Sera said. Even if you kill me, Theron will find the evidence. He'll expose you. Everything you've built will burn. Perhaps. But I'll have the satisfaction of destroying you first. The knife bit into her skin, drawing blood. Now. Last chance. Where are the documents? Sera spit in his face. Matthias wiped it away calmly. Very well. We'll do this the hard way. He raised the knife. The door exploded inward. Alpha King Theron stood in the doorway, eyes blazing pure gold, half-shifted, more monster than man. Behind him, a dozen warriors, armed and furious. Step away from her, Theron growled. Matthias spun, knife still in hand. My king! Thank the gods you're here. This thief broke into my home, attacked my guards. I know everything, Matthias. Theron's voice was death incarnate. I know you embezzled from this pack for 15 years. I know you murdered my mate. I know you murdered my son. The color drained from Matthias's face. The girl Sera rescued? She made it to the palace. Told us everything. Theron stepped into the cell. And while you were down here torturing a defenseless woman, I was presenting evidence of your crimes to the full council. Evidence can be fabricated. Adrian's personal journal, in his own handwriting, detailing every transaction, every deal, every crime you committed. Theron's claws extended. The council has already voted. Unanimously. Death. Matthias backed against the wall. You can't, I have allies. Your allies abandoned you the moment they saw the proof. No one wants to die alongside a traitor. Please, Matthias dropped to his knees. Please, I can pay restitution. I can. You can die. Theron moved so fast Sera barely saw it. One moment Matthias was begging. The next, Theron's claws were through his throat. The Beta collapsed, choking on his own blood. Theron watched him die without emotion. Then he turned to Sera. Are you all right? I've been better, Sera managed. He unlocked her chains. She collapsed, and he caught her, surprisingly gentle for someone who'd just committed murder with his bare hands. Mira? Sera asked. Safe. Your warriors got her out before Matthias's reinforcements arrived. Theron studied her face. You kept your promise. You saved Cade's sister. Is he? He's with her now. I had the collar removed the moment Mira confirmed everything. Theron's expression softened slightly. You were right about him. He was a victim, not a traitor. Relief flooded through Sera, so intense it made her dizzy. Or maybe that was the blood loss. Easy, Theron said. We need to get you to a healer. He lifted her in his arms and carried her out of the basement, past Matthias's corpse, past the guards still recovering from the memory projection. Outside, dawn was breaking. The fire in the northwest corner had been extinguished. Kira and Finn were being tended to by healers, wounded but alive. And there, standing by the gate, Cade, holding his sister. Mira was crying. Cade was crying. They were both a mess of tears and relief, and 5 years of trauma finally ending. Cade looked up as Theron carried Sera past. Their eyes met. Thank you, he mouthed. Sera managed a weak smile. They'd done it. Against all odds, against impossible circumstances, they'd actually done it. 3 days later, Sera woke in the palace infirmary. Her arm was bandaged where Matthias had cut her. Her head still ached from the memory projection. But she was alive. Maya sat beside her bed, reading a book. You're awake, the young servant said, smiling. The healers said you'd sleep for days. How long was I out? 2 days. You lost a lot of blood, and the psychic strain nearly killed you. Maya set the book aside. The Alpha King has been checking on you. So has Cade. Cade's allowed to visit? He's not a prisoner anymore. The collar's gone. He's been given chambers in the palace, full pardons for both him and his sister. Maya's smile widened. The Alpha King even offered him a position. Head of palace security. Sera tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain lanced through her arm. Easy, Maya cautioned. You need to rest. I need to see Cade. He'll be here soon. He visits every few hours. As if summoned, the door opened. Cade entered, looking better than Sera had seen him in days. The bruises were fading. The whip marks healing. And his throat was bare, no collar, no mark of shame. He looked like himself again. Hey, he said softly. Hey. He sat in the chair Maya vacated, giving them privacy. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. I'm sorry, Cade said finally. For everything. For betraying you, for... Stop. Sera reached out, took his hand. You did what you had to do. I understand that now. I should have found another way. Should have. There was no other way. Matthias had Mira. You were trapped. Sera squeezed his hand. And in the end, you helped me save her. That's what matters. Cade's eyes filled with tears. She's safe. After 5 years, she's finally safe. How is she? Traumatized. Scared. But alive. He wiped his eyes. She told me what you did. How you fought Matthias. How you made sure she escaped even when it meant sacrificing yourself. I promised I'd bring her home. You almost died keeping that promise. But I didn't. Sera managed a weak smile. We're both too stubborn to die. Cade laughed, the sound thick with emotion. Partners? Partners, Sera confirmed. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Cade said, the Alpha King wants to see you. When you're strong enough. He has a proposition. What kind of proposition? He didn't say. But he's been different since Matthias died. Lighter somehow. Like a weight was lifted. He got justice for his son. For his mate. Because of you. Cade's expression grew serious. You gave him that. You dove into his son's memories, found the evidence, exposed the killer. He won't forget that. A knock at the door interrupted them. Theron entered, looking more relaxed than Sera had ever seen him. The coldness was still there, but tempered now. Less ice, more calm water. You're awake, he said. Good. We need to talk. Cade excused himself, leaving Sera alone with the Alpha King. Theron pulled up a chair and sat, studying her with those unnerving amber eyes. You nearly died, he said without preamble. But I didn't. The healers say the memory projection you used should have killed you. Projecting to multiple targets simultaneously, maintaining it for that long. He shook his head. They've never seen anyone survive that level of psychic strain. I'm full of surprises. Clearly. Theron leaned back. Matthias is dead. The council has seized his assets. Everything he stole will be returned to the pack. His allies have been exposed and removed from positions of power. The corruption he built is being systematically dismantled. Good. My son can rest now. My mate's death has been avenged. His expression softened almost imperceptibly. And that's because of you. Sera shifted uncomfortably. I was just doing what you forced me to do. At first, perhaps. But when you raided Matthias's estate, when you protected Mira, when you nearly died rather than tell him where the evidence was hidden. Theron's eyes met hers. That wasn't obligation. That was choice. He was right, but Sera didn't want to examine why she'd made those choices too closely. What do you want, Theron? I want you to stay. Sera blinked. What? Stay here. In the palace. As my official memory keeper. He gestured broadly. You're the most talented memory thief, extractor, I've ever encountered. Your abilities could serve this pack in countless ways. Preserving important memories, investigating crimes, training others. I'm a criminal. You were a criminal. Now you're the woman who exposed a 15-year conspiracy and saved an innocent girl's life. Theron's expression was earnest. I'm offering you a new life, Sera. Legitimacy. Purpose. A place where your abilities are valued rather than hunted. And if I say no, then you're free to go. I won't stop you. You've more than earned your freedom. He paused. But I hope you'll consider it. This pack needs someone like you. Someone who can see the truth buried in memories, who can bring justice to those who've been wronged. Sera thought about it. A legitimate life. No more running, no more illegal jobs, no more looking over her shoulder waiting for the Memory Keepers Guild to find her and execute her for forbidden techniques. It was tempting. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. Theron stood. But there's one more thing you should know. What's that? My son loved you. I saw it in his memories, felt it when you were diving. His voice grew quiet. He would have wanted you to be happy. To have a real life, not one lived in shadows and fear. Theron moved toward the door, then paused. Adrian kept a journal. Personal entries about his life, his dreams, his feelings. I found it in his chambers after he died. He pulled a leather-bound book from his jacket. He wrote about you extensively. I think you should have this. He set the journal on the bedside table and left. Sera stared at it for a long moment before reaching out with shaking hands. The leather was soft, worn from use. She opened it to a random page. Today I saw Sera at the marketplace. She was bargaining with a merchant over the price of memory extraction equipment, and she was magnificent. Fierce and clever and completely unaware that everyone in the market was watching her. She has this way of commanding attention without even trying. I wanted to approach her. To talk to her like a normal person instead of hiding my identity. But what would I say? Hello, I'm the disappointing prince whose father wishes he'd been born stronger. Want to get coffee? She'd probably laugh in my face. Sera's vision blurred with tears. She flipped to another entry, weeks later. I told Sera who I really am today. Expected her to run, or worse, to pity me. Instead, she laughed and said, I know. I've known for months. You're terrible at disguises. Then she kissed me. I think I'm going to marry this woman. The tears fell freely now. Sera clutched the journal to her chest and let herself grieve properly for the first time. Not for the prince whose memory she'd stolen. Not for the abstract victim of Matthias's crimes. For Adrian. The man she'd loved. The man who'd loved her back. The man she'd forgotten under the weight of survival and betrayal. A week passed before Sera was strong enough to leave the infirmary. Her first stop was the servants' quarters, where Mira had been given a small but comfortable room while the healers worked to remove the witch's binding. Cade was there when Sera arrived, sitting beside his sister's bed, holding her hand. Mira looked better than the last time Sera had seen her. Clean, well-fed, wearing clothes that actually fit. But her eyes still held shadows that would take years to fade. Sera, Mira said, sitting up. They told me you were awake. I'm harder to kill than I look. I wanted to thank you. For saving me. Mira's voice broke. For giving me back my brother. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do. Mira stood, crossed to Sera, and hugged her fiercely. You risked everything for someone you'd never met. That's heroic. Sera awkwardly returned the embrace. She wasn't used to gratitude. Wasn't used to being called a hero. How are you doing? Sera asked when Mira released her. With everything? Better. The healers say the binding should be broken soon. Then I can finally shift again. Mira's expression darkened. 5 years. He kept me locked up for 5 years, and I couldn't even access my wolf. Couldn't defend myself. Couldn't escape. But you survived, Cade said gently. That's what matters. I survived because you never stopped looking for me. Mira looked at her brother with such love it made Sera's chest ache. Even when everyone said I was dead, you kept searching. Of course I did. You're my sister. They embraced, and Sera felt like she was intruding on a private moment. She slipped out quietly, leaving them to their reunion. Sera found Theron in the council chamber, reviewing documents with his new beta, a stern woman named Iris who'd helped expose Matthias's allies. Sera, Theron greeted her. You're looking better. I heal fast. So I've noticed. He dismissed Iris with a gesture. Have you thought about my offer? I have. And? Sera took a deep breath. I'll stay. On one condition. Theron raised an eyebrow. Name it. Cade works with me. Whatever position you're creating, whatever role you want me to fill, he's part of it. We're a team. Always have been. I already offered him head of palace security. And he'll be great at that. But in his spare time, he works with me. He has skills that complement mine. Investigation, planning, security assessment. Sera met Theron's eyes. You want the best memory keeper? You get both of us. Theron considered this. Very well. You and Cade will operate as a unit. Investigating crimes, preserving important memories, whatever the pack needs. And we're not prisoners. We can leave if we want. You were never prisoners. Even when I said you were. A slight smile. I may be ruthless, but I'm not in the habit of enslaving people who save my pack. One more thing. You're quite demanding for someone who was a convicted thief a week ago. Mira gets proper care. Therapy, training, whatever she needs to recover from what Matthias did to her. Already arranged. She'll have the best healers, the best counselors, everything the palace can provide. Theron's expression grew serious. I failed to protect my own son. I won't fail to protect her. Sera nodded, satisfied. So we have a deal? Theron extended his hand. Sera shook it. We have a deal. 2 weeks later, the pack held a memorial service for Prince Adrian. The first one had been rushed, held while everyone believed he died in battle. This one was different. Honest. A celebration of who he really was and what he died trying to accomplish. The entire pack attended. Thousands of wolves gathered in the palace gardens as Theron stood before Adrian's memorial stone and spoke. My son was not the warrior I wanted him to be, Theron said, his voice carrying across the crowd. He was weak in body. Struggled to shift. Preferred books to battles. Silence. Uncomfortable, waiting. But he was braver than any warrior I've ever known. He saw corruption and didn't look away. He gathered evidence knowing it would put him in danger. He stood up to a man who'd been like an uncle to him because it was the right thing to do. Theron's voice grew thick with emotion. He died protecting this pack. Died trying to expose the rot that had infected us. And because of him, because of the evidence he gathered, the investigation he started, we're stronger now. Cleaner. Better. He paused, looking out at the assembled wolves. Adrian once told me that true strength isn't measured by how hard you can hit, but by how much you're willing to sacrifice for others. I didn't understand then. I do now. Theron placed a hand on the memorial stone. My son was the strongest person I've ever known. And I will spend the rest of my life being worthy of him. The crowd was silent, many openly crying. Sera stood in the back, Cade beside her, both of them holding Adrian's journal. They'd been reading it together, learning about the man through his own words. After the ceremony, people came to pay their respects, to share memories of Adrian, to thank Sera for bringing the truth to light. An elderly woman approached Master Theron from the memory archives. You did well, she said to Sera. Adrian chose his heir wisely. I barely knew him. But he knew you. Saw something in you worth trusting with his final truth. Master Theron's eyes were kind. He would be proud of what you've become. She moved on, leaving Sera with those words. That night, Sera returned to her chambers, no longer the East Tower, but a proper suite in the palace's residential wing, and found Cade waiting. Theron asked me to give you this, he said, holding out a small box. Sera opened it. Inside, a crystal pendant on a silver chain. Beautiful, delicate, and unmistakably containing a memory. It's from Adrian, Cade explained. Theron found it in his son's personal effects. A memory he preserved before he died. He wanted you to have it. Sera's hands trembled as she lifted the pendant. Have you seen what's in it? No. Theron said it's private. For you only. Sera nodded, then hesitated. Will you stay? While I view it. Of course. They sat together on the couch. Sera pressed the pendant to her forehead and pulled. Adrian's memory, from 6 months before his death. He was in his chambers, speaking to the crystal as he recorded. If you're watching this, Sera, then I'm probably dead. Matthias probably got to me before I could stop him. His image smiled sadly. I want you to know that loving you is the best decision I ever made. You made me braver. Made me want to be better. Made me believe I could actually make a difference. He reached out, as if he could touch her through the memory. Don't blame yourself for my death. Don't carry guilt for something you couldn't prevent. I made my choices knowing the risks. And I'd make them again. His expression grew earnest. Live, Sera. Really live. Not in shadows, not running, not hiding what you are. You're extraordinary. Let the world see that. A pause. And, if you ever meet my father, tell him I forgive him. For the expectations, the disappointment, all of it. He did his best. We both did. Adrian's smile widened. I love you. In this life and whatever comes after. Remember that. The memory faded. Sera opened her eyes, tears streaming down her face. Cade pulled her into an embrace, letting her cry against his shoulder. He knew, Sera sobbed. He knew he was going to die, and he still went forward. Still tried to stop Matthias. Because that's who he was. They sat together until Sera's tears dried. Finally, she pulled back. Thank you. For being here. Always. Cade stood. I should go. Let you rest. Cade? He paused at the door. I'm glad we're partners again. His smile was warm, genuine. Me too. 3 months passed. Sera and Cade settled into their new roles. They investigated crimes using her memory extraction abilities and his tactical skills. They trained younger wolves in proper memory preservation techniques. They became fixtures in the palace, trusted and respected. Mira's binding was broken. She shifted for the first time in 5 years, a beautiful silver wolf that reminded Sera painfully of their old pack. But Mira was healing, slowly but surely, surrounded by people who cared about her. Theron became less cold, more present. He attended council meetings with genuine interest rather than obligation. He walked through the pack lands and actually spoke to his people. Grief had changed him. Or maybe justice had. One evening, Sera found herself on the balcony where Adrian used to stand, looking out over the city. Theron joined her. He used to come here every night, the Alpha King said. Said it helped him think. I know. I saw it in his memories. They stood in comfortable silence. Thank you, Theron said eventually. For what? For giving me my son back. Not literally, but... He gestured vaguely. The memories you extracted, the journal, the evidence he gathered, it's like having pieces of him still here. Knowing what he thought, what he felt, what he fought for. He was remarkable. He was. Theron's voice grew quiet. And he loved you very much. I loved him too. I know. Theron turned to face her. That's why I want you to have something. He pulled out a ring, simple, elegant, with a small diamond. He bought this 2 weeks before he died. Was planning to propose. Theron pressed it into Sera's hand. I found it in his chambers. I think he'd want you to have it. Not as a proposal, but as a promise kept. He wanted to spend his life with you. This is proof of that intention. Sera stared at the ring, tears blurring her vision. Thank you, she whispered. Theron nodded and left her alone with her grief and her memories, and the physical proof that she'd been loved. The memory preservation wing was Sera's favorite part of the palace. It had been empty storage rooms before, dusty, forgotten spaces that no one visited. Now it was a fully functional archive, second only to the official Memory Keepers Guild in the city. Sera had designed it herself, with crystal storage containers, proper preservation chambers, and a diving room with mirrors that amplified psychic energy. She stood in the diving room now, preparing to extract memories from an elderly wolf who wanted her life story preserved for her grandchildren. Cade entered, carrying 2 cups of tea. Thought you might need this, he said, handing her one. You're a lifesaver. I know. He grinned. How many extractions today? 3. The grandmother, then a witness to a theft, then someone who wants to preserve their wedding memories. Busy day. I like busy. Sera sipped her tea. Keeps me from thinking too much. Cade's expression softened. You still think about him. Every day. Sera touched the ring on her finger. She wore it on her right hand. Reminder rather than a promise. But it's getting easier. The grief isn't as sharp. That's good. How's Mira? Better. She's training with the younger wolves now, learning to fight properly. Says she never wants to feel helpless again. Pride colored Cade's voice. She's strong. Stronger than I gave her credit for. She survived 5 years with Matthias. Of course she's strong. A knock interrupted them. One of Theron's guards entered. The Alpha King requests your presence. Both of you. Immediately. Sera and Cade exchanged glances. Did he say why? Cade asked. No, but he seemed troubled. Theron's office was in chaos. Maps covered every surface, marked with symbols and notes. The Alpha King himself looked haggard, like he hadn't slept in days. What's wrong? Sera asked immediately. We have a problem. Theron gestured to the maps. 3 packs in the Northern Territories have been attacked in the past month. Not by rogues or rival packs, by something else. What kind of something else? That's what I need you to find out. Theron pulled out a memory sphere. This was extracted from a survivor of the last attack. But every memory extractor I've had look at it says the same thing, it's corrupted. Fragmented. Impossible to dive properly. Sera took the sphere, turning it over in her hands. It pulsed erratically, not the steady rhythm of a normal memory. What happened to the survivor? Dead. Died 3 days after the extraction from injuries sustained in the attack. But before he died, he said one word over and over. Shadows. Shadows? That's all we have. Theron leaned against his desk, exhaustion evident. Sera, I need you to dive this memory. I need to know what attacked those packs. Because whatever it is, it's moving south. Toward us. Sera examined the sphere more closely. The corruption was unlike anything she'd seen before. Not death corruption that she knew intimately. This was something else. Something that felt wrong on a fundamental level. I'll try, she said. But I can't promise I'll see anything useful. That's all I ask. The diving room was silent except for Sera's breathing. She sat in the center, the corrupted memory sphere pressed to her forehead, while Cade and Theron watched from the edges. "Ready?" Cade asked. Sera nodded and pulled. The memory fought her immediately. It didn't want to be viewed, didn't want to be understood. It twisted and writhed like a living thing, resisting her psychic pull. Sera pushed harder. The world reformed, fragmented, unstable, like looking through broken glass. She was the survivor, a male wolf named Marcus, standing in his pack's central square. Night. Late. The moon hidden behind clouds. Something was wrong. The air felt thick, heavy, like breathing through water. Shadows pooled in corners where they shouldn't, darker than natural darkness. Then they moved. The shadows detached from walls, from buildings, from the ground itself. They rose up, taking vaguely humanoid shapes, but wrong, so wrong, like someone had tried to sculpt people from pure darkness and failed. Marcus screamed. The shadows fell on the pack. They didn't fight like wolves or humans. They didn't fight like anything that should exist. They flowed around claws and teeth, absorbed attacks, and wherever they touched, wolves fell. Not dead. Not injured. Empty. Their eyes went blank. Their movements ceased. They stood frozen like puppets with cut strings. Marcus ran. Behind him, his pack was falling one by one, consumed by living shadows that shouldn't exist. He made it to the woods. Looked back. The entire pack stood motionless in the square, and the shadows were pooling together, merging into something larger. The memory shattered. Sera tore herself out with a gasp that sounded more like a scream. "What did you see?" Theron demanded. "Shadows. Literally. They moved, they attacked, Sera struggled for words. They absorbed the wolves. Made them empty. I don't know how else to describe it." "That's not possible," Theron said. "Shadows aren't alive. These ones were." Sera's hands shook. And there was something else. Right before the memory fragmented, the shadows were combining into something bigger. "What?" "I don't know. I didn't see it clearly." Sera closed her eyes, trying to recall. But whatever it was, Marcus was terrified of it. More terrified than of dying. Cade spoke up. "Could it be magic? Some kind of spell or curse?" "Possibly. But I've never heard of magic that could animate shadows." Theron paced. "I need to consult with the pack's historians. See if there's any record of something like this." "There's another option," Sera said quietly. "What's that?" "I could go north. To the attacked packs. Try to extract memories from other survivors or witnesses." "Absolutely not." Theron's tone was final. "It's too dangerous. Whatever this is, it's already killed dozens of wolves. Which is why you need information. And I'm the best chance you have of getting it." Sera stood, facing him directly. "This is what you hired me for, Theron. To investigate. To find truth in memories." "She's right," Cade interjected. "And I'll go with her. Provide security, tactical support. Both of you could die." "We could," Sera acknowledged. "But if we don't figure out what this is and how to stop it, a lot more people are going to die. Including everyone in this pack." Theron stared at them both for a long moment. "Fine," he said eventually. "But you take a full security detail. 6 warriors minimum. And you report back every day. Any sign of these shadow things, you retreat immediately." "Agreed." "When do we leave?" Cade asked. "Tomorrow at dawn." Theron moved to the maps. The most recent attack was here, at the Silver Fong Pack. "Start there." They left before sunrise. Sera, Cade, and 6 of Theron's best warriors, including Kira, who'd recovered from her injuries during the raid on Matthias's estate. The journey north took 3 days of hard riding. The landscape changed as they traveled. The forests grew denser, the air colder. And there was something else. A heaviness that Sera couldn't quite name, like the world itself was holding its breath. "Do you feel that?" she asked Cade on the second night. "Feel what?" "Like we're being watched." Cade scanned the darkening forest. "I don't see anything." "Not see. Feel." Sera touched her chest. "Something's wrong here. The air feels sick." Kira approached. "She's right. I feel it too. Like there's something rotten just out of sight." They doubled the watch that night. Nothing attacked. But Sera barely slept, plagued by dreams of living shadows and empty-eyed wolves. The Silverfang Pack's territory was a graveyard. That was Sera's first thought as they rode through the main gates. Buildings stood intact, but empty. No guards on the walls. No wolves in the streets. No sound except the wind. "Where is everyone?" one of the warriors whispered. They found them in the central square. Hundreds of wolves. Standing perfectly still. Eyes open but blink. Breathing but not living. "Gods," Cade breathed. Sera dismounted and approached cautiously. She touched one of the frozen wolves, a young woman, maybe 20, dressed in guard's armor. No response. The woman's skin was warm, her heart beating, but she didn't blink or react to Sera's touch. "It's like they're asleep," Sera said. "But their eyes are open." "Can you bring them back?" Kira asked. "I don't know. I've never seen anything like this." Sera pressed her fingers to the woman's forehead and pulled, trying to extract a memory, any memory that might explain what happened. Nothing. The woman's mind was empty. No memories, no thoughts, no consciousness. Just void. "She's gone," Sera whispered, pulling back. "Not dead, but there's nothing left inside. No memories, no personality, nothing. It's like someone scooped out everything that made her human and left just the shell." "All of them." Cade gestured to the hundreds of standing wolves. "I think so." The implications settled over the group like a shroud. "We need to find out what did this," Kira said. "And we need to find out fast, before it moves to the next pack." Sera nodded, steeling herself. "I'll need to dive deeper. Try to find residual memories in the area, trace what happened." "How?" "Memory leaves an imprint. Especially violent or traumatic memory. If I can tap into the collective psychic residue, I might be able to reconstruct events." Sera looked at the empty wolves. "But it's going to take time and a lot of energy." "Do it," Cade said. "We'll secure the perimeter and keep watch." Sera positioned herself in the center of the square, surrounded by the empty wolves, and opened her mind completely. Normally, she pulled memories from specific sources, people, objects, preserved spheres. This was different. This was reaching out into the psychic atmosphere itself, trying to catch echoes of what had happened. It was dangerous. Opening your mind that wide left you vulnerable to psychic backlash, to getting lost in memories that weren't yours. But it was the only way. Sera took a deep breath and pulled. The world inverted. Suddenly she was everywhere at once, experiencing the attack from 100 different perspectives simultaneously. Night falling. Wolves gathering for evening meal. Laughter, conversation, the comfortable sounds of pack life. Then silence. Unnatural, complete silence. Even the wind stopped. Shadows pooling in corners. Growing. Rising. The attack happened fast. Shadows flowing like water, surrounding wolves before they could react. Where the shadows touched, wolves froze. Fear. So much fear. Someone screaming to run, to fight too. The shadows merged. Combined. Formed something massive in the center of the square. Sera focused on it, trying to see clearly through the fragmented memories. A figure. Humanoid, but wrong. 12 feet tall, made entirely of condensed shadow. Eyes that glowed with sickly green light. Mouth opening to reveal. Sera was violently ejected from the residual memory. She collapsed, gasping, blood streaming from her nose. Cade was there instantly, supporting her. "What happened? What did you see?" "A being," Sera choked out. "Made of shadows. It controlled them, directed the attack. And when it opened its mouth..." "What?" "It consumed them. Not their bodies, their essence. Their memories, their consciousness, everything that made them who they were. It ate them." Kira had gone pale. "What kind of creature can do that?" "I don't know." Sera wiped blood from her face with shaking hands. "But it's still out there. And it's hunting. We need to report this to Theron immediately," Cade said. "Agreed." But first, Sera forced herself to stand, though her legs trembled. "I need to check something." She moved to the edge of the square, where the shadows were deepest. "Sera, what are you doing?" Cade called. She knelt and pressed her hand to the ground where the shadows pooled unnaturally dark. Pull. A flash of memory, not from a wolf, but from the shadow creature itself. Hunger. Endless, consuming hunger. Hunting. Moving south. Seeking more essence to devour. And beneath that, a command. A directive from something even darker, something that waited in the... Sera jerked back with a cry. There's something controlling it, she said. The shadow creature. It's not acting independently. Something darker is directing it. Sending it south. South, Kira repeated. Toward us. Toward Theron's pack, Sera confirmed. And it's not going to stop until it's consumed everything in its path. The warriors looked at each other, fear evident on every face. How do we stop something made of shadows? One of them asked. I don't know, Sera admitted. But we're going to find out. Because if we don't... She looked at the hundreds of empty wolves standing silent in the square. This is everyone's future. They searched the Silverfang territory for hours, looking for clues, for survivors, for anything that might help them understand or fight the shadow creature. In the pack's library, Sera found something. An ancient text, written in old language that she could barely decipher. But one word repeated throughout. Nethermaw. Cade, look at this. He peered over her shoulder at the aged pages. What is it? I think it's a record of something similar happening. Hundreds of years ago. Sera traced the text with her finger, translating slowly. A creature of shadow and hunger. Called the Nethermaw. It consumed an entire pack before. Before what? The text is damaged. I can't read the ending. Sera flipped through pages frantically. But there has to be more information somewhere. They searched until nightfall, eventually finding a second text in the Alpha's private study. This one was clearer. The Nethermaw, Sera read aloud, is a being of pure psychic hunger. It feeds on consciousness itself, leaving only empty vessels. It cannot be killed by conventional weapons, as it has no physical form to destroy. That's not helpful, Kira muttered. Wait, there's more. Sera continued reading. The Nethermaw is summoned and controlled through dark memory magic. A practitioner of forbidden techniques can call one forth and direct its hunger. But the cost is steep. The summoner must feed it constantly, lest it turn on its master and consume them instead. Someone summoned this thing? Cade's voice was tight with anger. Someone deliberately unleashed it? It looks that way. But who? And why? Sera turned the page and found her answer. A name. Written in the margins in fresher ink than the rest of the text, like someone had added it recently. Corvus. Beta Corvus, Sera whispered. Matthias's brother. The room went silent. I thought Matthias was an only child, Kira said. So did everyone. Sera's mind raced. But what if he had a brother? What if Corvus survived Matthias's execution and wants revenge? Revenge against Theron. Against the pack. Cade's eyes widened. Against everyone who helped expose Matthias. Against us, Sera finished. They stared at each other as the implications sank in. Somewhere out there, a powerful memory mage with a grudge had summoned an ancient creature of shadow and hunger. And he'd sent it south to destroy everything Theron loved. Starting with his pack. We have to get back, Sera said. Now. Theron needs to know what's coming. They rode through the night, pushing their horses to the limit. Sera clutched the ancient texts against her chest, mind racing through everything they'd discovered. The Nethermaw. Corvus. The connection to Matthias. It all made terrible sense. How far ahead of us is it? Kira called over the thunder of hoofbeats. I don't know, Sera shouted back. The attacks have been happening every few days. If the pattern holds, we might already be too late, Cade finished grimly. They rode harder. On the second day, they began seeing signs. Birds fleeing south in massive flocks. Deer running in panicked herds. Animals knew when predators were near, and they were fleeing something far worse than any natural predator. It's close, Sera said. Maybe a day ahead of us. Can we catch it? One of the warriors asked. We have to. They abandoned the horses at midday. The animals were exhausted, and wolves could cover ground faster on foot in their shifted forms. Sera couldn't shift. She'd never had that ability, her wolf connection too weak. But Cade stayed human with her, keeping pace, while the warriors shifted and ranged ahead as scouts. By nightfall on the third day, they could see Theron's territory in the distance. And above it, darkness that wasn't natural. shadows that moved against the wind. No, Sera breathed. No, no, no. They ran. The pack was in chaos when they arrived. Wolves fought desperately against shadows that couldn't be wounded, couldn't be killed. Where the darkness touched, warriors fell, their eyes going blank, their bodies freezing mid-strike. In the center of the battle, the Nethermaw. Sera had seen it in fragmented memories, but the reality was so much worse. 12 feet of condensed shadow and hunger, eyes glowing sickly green, mouth open in a perpetual scream that consumed consciousness itself. And directing it from the palace steps, a man in dark robes covered in glowing runes. Corvus. Theron. Sera screamed. The Alpha King was in the thick of fighting, half-shifted, trying to protect his people from an enemy he couldn't hurt. He turned at her shout. Sera, what is that thing? Another maw. You can't kill it with physical attacks. Sera pushed through the chaos toward him. Where's Mira? In the palace, hiding with the non-combatants. Why? Because I have an idea. But I need time. Theron didn't hesitate. Warriors. To me. Defensive formation. The remaining conscious wolves rallied around their Alpha King, forming a protective circle while Sera ran for the palace. Cade followed. What's the plan? The Nethermaw feeds on consciousness, on memories. It's pure psychic energy given form. Sera's mind raced as they sprinted up the palace steps. What if we could overwhelm it? Give it more psychic energy than it can consume? How? Memory projection. Like what I did to Matthias's guards, but bigger. If I can project enough memories at once, flood it with more consciousness than it can absorb. It might destabilize, Cade finished. But Sera, projecting to multiple people nearly killed you. Projecting to something that size will definitely kill me. I know. She grabbed his arm. That's why I need you to get everyone to safety if this doesn't work. Mira, the survivors, anyone left. Get them out. No. I'm not letting you sacrifice yourself. It's not your choice. Sera pulled away from him. This is what Adrian died for. What you suffered for. What all those empty wolves in Silverfang lost everything for. Someone has to stop Corvus. And I'm the only one who can. She could see the agony in Cade's eyes. The same impossible choice he'd faced with Mira, now reflected back at him. I'm sorry, Sera whispered. But this is my choice. Not yours. She ran before he could argue further. Corvus stood on the palace steps, arms raised, chanting in ancient language while the Nethermaw devoured his way through Theron's pack. He was older than Matthias had been, with silver hair and a face carved by bitterness. The runes on his robes glowed brighter as he fed more power to his summoned creature. Sera approached slowly, hands raised, showing she was unarmed. Corvus, she called. He turned, and his expression twisted with hatred. You, the memory thief who destroyed my brother. Your brother destroyed himself. He was a murderer and a thief. He was brilliant. Corvus's voice cracked. He built an empire from nothing. And you and that pathetic Alpha King tore it down. He killed Adrian. He killed the queen. He kept an innocent girl prisoner for 5 years. Lies. All lies told by jealous rivals. Corvus pointed at her. You wanted what he built. Wanted his power. So you fabricated evidence and turned Theron against him. Sera realized with sinking certainty that Corvus genuinely believed what he was saying. Grief and rage had twisted his mind, made him unable to see his brother's crimes. I can prove it, Sera said carefully. I have Matthias's own memories. I can show you. I don't want your corrupted memories. I want justice. Corvus gestured, and the Nethermaw turned toward Sera, abandoning the warriors. My brother died in disgrace. His name destroyed. His legacy erased. So I'll erase everything he cared about. Starting with this pack. Then every pack in the territory. I'll leave nothing but empty shells, and Theron will die knowing he couldn't protect anyone. The Nethermaw advanced. Sera stood her ground. You're right about one thing. Your brother did care about this pack. That's why he stole from it for 15 years. Why he murdered anyone who discovered his crimes. He cared so much he killed the queen when she got suspicious. Killed the prince when he gathered evidence. Stop lying. I'm not lying. And deep down, you know it. Sera pulled out Adrian's memory sphere. She'd been carrying it since the library, a talisman against darkness. Your brother was brilliant. Brilliant enough to hide his crimes for years. Brilliant enough to fool everyone, including you. Corvus's chanting faltered. He didn't deserve to die, Sera continued, moving closer. Not like that. Not publicly executed, his crimes exposed for everyone to see. That must have been agony for you. Watching your brother, your brilliant, careful brother, humiliated and killed. Tears streaked down Corvus's face. He was all I had. I know. And you want revenge. You want everyone to hurt like you're hurting. Sera was close now, close enough to see the madness in his eyes, the grief that had consumed him. But this won't bring him back. It won't erase what he did. It will just create more empty shells. More people who've lost everything. Good. Let them know how it feels. Let me show you instead. Sera pressed Adrian's memory sphere to Corvus's forehead and pushed with everything she had. The memory flooded Corvus's mind. Prince Adrian's investigation. Every document he'd found. Every piece of evidence proving Matthias's crimes. The ledgers in Matthias's own handwriting. The letters arranging illegal deals. The contracts selling pack secrets. Matthias threatening Adrian. Admitting to killing the queen. Ordering the prince's assassination. All of it. Undeniable. True. Corvus staggered back, the memory sphere falling from his hands. No, he whispered. No, that's not he wouldn't. He did. Sera's voice was gentle now. Your brother was corrupt. And when someone tried to stop him, he had them killed. That's the truth. That's what you've been avenging. Corvus's chanting stopped completely. The Nethermaw wavered, its connection to its summoner disrupted. I've spent a year, Corvus said numbly, staring at his hands. A year studying forbidden magic. Summoning this creature. Planning revenge against innocent people. For a lie. Not a lie. The truth was just too painful to accept. What have I done? Corvus looked at the frozen wolves, at the Nethermaw that had consumed dozens of consciousnesses. Gods, what have I done? The Nethermaw turned toward them, no longer controlled, operating on pure hunger. It had consumed so many minds, grown so powerful. And now, without Corvus's direction, it would devour everything until there was nothing left. You have to banish it, Sera said urgently. You summoned it, you can send it back. I can't. The banishment ritual requires. Corvus's face went pale. It requires a sacrifice. A consciousness given willingly to fill the void left by the Nethermaw's departure. Then use mine. Everyone turned. Cade stood behind them, face set with determination. No. Sera lunged for him, but he stepped past her, moving toward the Nethermaw. It's the only way, Cade said calmly. Someone has to do it. And I've already lived on borrowed time. Should have died 5 years ago with my pack. Cade, don't. Mira's safe. That's all that matters. He smiled at Sera, that familiar, warm smile. You gave me that. Gave me the chance to save her. Now let me save everyone else. I can't lose you. You won't. Memory thieves don't lose people, remember? You keep us alive in the memories you preserve. Cade touched her face gently. Save mine. Tell Mira I love her. And Sera. What? Thank you. For being my partner. My friend. For never giving up on me. He turned to Corvus. Do it. Now. Before I lose my nerve. Corvus raised shaking hands, began chanting in the ancient language. The Nethermaw's attention fixed on Cade. No. Sera screamed, but Theron was there suddenly, holding her back, keeping her from running into the Nethermaw's path. Cade walked forward calmly, deliberately, toward the creature of shadow and hunger. It consumed him in an instant. Cade's eyes went blank. His body froze. And then light. Pure, brilliant light erupted from where Cade stood. The Nethermaw shrieked, a sound like reality tearing, as Corvus's banishment ritual combined with Cade's willing sacrifice. The shadows unraveled. The Nethermaw collapsed inward, imploding into nothing, dragged back to whatever dark place it had come from. Cade collapsed. Sera broke free from Theron and ran to him. He was still breathing. Still alive. But his eyes were empty. No, no, no. Sera cradled his head, pressing her fingers to his temples, trying to pull any memory, any consciousness. Nothing. Cade was gone. Not dead, but empty. A shell, just like all the others. The sacrifice had taken everything. Sera screamed. The battle was over. The Nethermaw was gone. Corvus had surrendered, broken by guilt and grief. The immediate threat was ended. But the cost. Sera knelt beside Cade's empty body while healers tried and failed to revive his consciousness. Around them, families mourned their own losses, dozens of wolves who'd been consumed, left as living corpses. Mira arrived, took one look at her brother, and collapsed beside Sera, sobbing. "I'm sorry," Sera whispered. "I'm so sorry. I should have." "He chose this," Mira choked out. "He chose to save everyone. That's who he was." Theron stood over them, his face carved from stone. Corvus claims there might be a way to restore them. The consciousness isn't destroyed, just displaced. Consumed by the Nethermaw and cast into the void when it was banished. Sera looked up. What way? Memory reconstruction. If someone could dive into the void itself, into the psychic space where the Nethermaw existed, they might be able to retrieve the stolen consciousness and return it to the bodies. That's suicide. The void would consume anyone who entered it. Not anyone. Theron's eyes met hers. Not someone with your abilities. You're the strongest memory diver alive. If anyone could survive it, could bring them back. It would kill me. Probably. But it might save them. Dozens of innocent people. Including Cade. Sera looked down at her partner. Her friend. The man who'd sacrificed everything to save her, to save his sister, to save a pack that had once imprisoned him. How long do I have to decide? The trail grows colder every hour. If you're going to try, it needs to be soon. Sera stood. Then I'll try. But not for all of them. I don't have the strength for that. How many? 1. Maybe 2 if I'm lucky. She looked at Theron. I'm sorry. But that's the limit of what I can do without dying. Then choose. It was an impossible choice. Cade, who'd been her partner for years. Or the dozen other wolves who'd fought bravely and lost everything. Or the civilians who'd just been in the wrong place when the shadows fell. Sera closed her eyes. What would Adrian do? The answer came immediately. Adrian would save whoever needed it most. Whoever had the most to live for. She opened her eyes and looked at Mira. The girl who'd survived 5 years of captivity. Who'd just gotten her brother back only to lose him again. Who deserved to have family, to heal, to live without more trauma. Cade, Sera said. I'm bringing back Cade. They prepared the diving chamber with every resource the pack had. Crystals to amplify Sera's abilities. Healers standing by in case her body failed. Theron himself maintaining a psychic anchor to pull her back if she got lost. Sera lay in the center, Cade's empty body beside her. Are you sure about this? Theron asked one last time. No. But I'm doing it anyway. She took Cade's hand, pressed her other hand to his forehead, and pulled harder than she'd ever pulled before. Not pulling a memory from him. Pulling herself through him, into the space beyond, into the void where the Nethermaw had cast his consciousness. The void was empty. Not dark, darkness implied the absence of light. This was the absence of everything. No sight, no sound, no sensation. Sera existed here only because her mind refused to stop existing. She reached out, feeling for any trace of Cade's consciousness. Any fragment of memory that might still carry his essence. There a flicker. Faint. Almost gone. She dove toward it. The memory was broken. Shattered into 1,000 pieces by the Nethermaw's consumption. But Sera was a memory thief. Reconstruction was her specialty. She gathered the fragments one by one. Cade as a child, laughing with his sister. Cade during the pack slaughter, desperately searching for survivors. Cade meeting Sera for the first time, wary but intrigued. Cade planning their first job together. Cade's face when he realized Mira was alive. Cade choosing to sacrifice himself to save everyone. Piece by piece, she rebuilt him. But the void didn't want to let go. It pulled at her, hungry for more consciousness to fill the emptiness. It wanted Sera as much as it had wanted Cade. She felt herself starting to fragment. her own memories beginning to drift away. No. She'd come here to save Cade, and she was going to do it. Sera grabbed the reconstructed consciousness, Cade, whole and complete, and shoved it back toward his body with everything she had. Then the void claimed her. Sera opened her eyes to whiteness. Not the void. Something else. Somewhere peaceful. Hello, Sera. She turned. Prince Adrian stood before her, smiling, exactly as she remembered him from his memories. Am I dead? She asked. Not yet. But you're close. Adrian gestured around them. This is the space between. Where consciousness goes when it's leaving the body, but hasn't fully departed yet. I need to go back. I need to. You can't. The void took too much from you. Your body is failing. Adrian's expression was gentle. But you saved Cade. His consciousness is back in his body. He'll wake up. That's good. Sera felt oddly calm about her own impending death. Will it hurt? No. It's just letting go. I don't want to let go. There's still so much to do. Corvus needs to be judged. The other victims need help. Mira needs. Mira will be fine. Cade will take care of her. Adrian moved closer. You did everything right, Sera. You exposed corruption. Saved innocent people. Stopped an ancient evil. You can rest now. Will I see you? Wherever I'm going. I don't know. But I hope so. Adrian smiled. I've missed you. Sera felt tears on her face. I've missed you too. Then let go. It's okay. You've earned your rest. It would be so easy. Just stop fighting. Stop struggling. Let the whiteness take her. But no, Sera said. Adrian raised an eyebrow. No. I'm not ready to rest. There are people who need me. A pack that's still healing. Memories that need to be preserved. Sera straightened. And I made a promise to Theron. To be his memory keeper. I don't break promises. Sera, you're dying. You don't have a choice. There's always a choice. She smiled. You taught me that. You chose to investigate Matthias even knowing it would kill you. Cade chose to sacrifice himself. I choose to fight. Fighting won't change anything. Your body is too damaged. Then I'll heal it. Memory reconstruction works both ways, right? I rebuilt Cade from fragments. I can rebuild myself. That's never been done. Good. I like being the first. Sera closed her eyes and reached into her own consciousness, feeling for the fragments the void had taken. Her memories, her sense of self, everything that made her her. And she pulled. Not pulling from the void, pulling from her own past. Every memory she'd ever preserved, every moment she'd experienced, every connection she'd made. She pulled from Adrian's love, from Cade's friendship, from Mira's gratitude, from Theron's respect. She pulled from every job she'd completed, every memory she'd extracted, every life she'd touched. And she used all of it to rebuild herself. Sera gasped awake. She was back in her body, back in the diving chamber, surrounded by shocked healers and a stunned Theron. You're alive, the Alpha King breathed. How? Memory reconstruction. Sera tried to sit up and immediately fell back, exhausted. Where's Cade? He woke up 5 minutes ago. He's asking for you. Take me to him. They carried her to the recovery room where Cade was sitting up in bed, looking dazed but whole. His eyes were clear, consciousness returned. When he saw Sera, he started crying. You brought me back, he said. You went into the void and brought me back. Of course I did. We're partners. Mira was there too, sobbing with relief, hugging her brother like she'd never let go. Sera watched them, feeling contentment settle over her despite the exhaustion. This was what Adrian had died for. What she'd nearly died for. Family. Love. Second chances. Worth it. 1 year later. The memory preservation wing had expanded. Now it wasn't just Sera working there, but a whole team. Young wolves learning memory extraction and preservation. Historians cataloging the pack's collective history. Healers using memory techniques to help trauma victims. Sera stood in the main hall, watching her students practice basic extraction on willing volunteers. They're doing well, Theron said, appearing beside her. They are. Another few months and they'll be better than me. Impossible. You're legendary. Theron smiled. The memory keeper who walked into the void and came back. Songs are being written about you. Gods, I hope not. I hate being the center of attention. Too late. You saved this pack. Multiple packs. You're a hero whether you like it or not. Sera made a face and Theron laughed. How's Cade? He asked. Good. He and Mira are planning a trip north, actually. To visit the packs that were attacked. Help. Sera's story proves that even in our darkest moments, when we're betrayed, broken, and thrown to the wolves, we can rise again. Stronger. Fiercer. Unbreakable. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you believe in second chances, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Speech Balloon, what was your favorite moment? Team Cade or Team Theron? Let me know in the comments. Open Book want more stories about strong heroines, impossible choices, and epic revenge? Follow for weekly updates. Why Medium Star your support means everything, like, share, and subscribe to help this story reach others who need it.